And we're live.
Skip, today marks 7 years since my father passed away. Kind of sucks because I know if he was around, he'd be a big fan of our show right now. He would be loving To The Point. Okay, and speaking of fans, we also have one gentleman out there. I've noticed you, Dr. Kenneth Murray. I know you watch our show. I know we've never met, but we appreciate the support. So, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in on To The Point with
Skip.
and the King. You guys know where to find Simon. SimonBroder.com, Amazon.ca, Running the Point. Go buy that book for your children. They are going to love it. Get after Skip at Dougie J's on Twitter because it's baseball season. You guys can get at him for that. I love watching it.
Tweeting a lot about the Jays right now, as well as always a bit about the Raptors as well. So I'm always on there.
Yep. You guys know where to get at me, at King Hussein on all social media platforms. You guys know where to get at us. To The Point on Instagram. To The Point on Twitter. To The Point on Facebook. By the way, guys, I have been watching your comments over the last couple of weeks on what we post. And there's been a lot of you guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. We see the lovers. We see the haters. We know who you guys are. And keep it up. We really much appreciate it. So go over there to where we are on YouTube. Click subscribe for more content, for what we have to offer towards you, Toronto Raptors fans. Skip, I have a question for you.
Hit me.
Is Malachi Flynn the future point guard of your Toronto Raptors?
I mean, that's a big question. I think he's shown us a lot so far, right? I think he's looking like he can really fit into the system in some level as a point guard. I think the real question is going to be what happens, next year if Lowry comes back, if Lowry doesn't come back. Right now, I would say it's honestly looking like Lowry's probably not going to come back because if you look at the Raptors, they're really trending towards a younger team. Lowry and Baines are the only guys over 30. The second oldest player or the third oldest players on the team are Birch, Boucher, and who's the other one? Birch, Boucher, and Rodney Hood. And there's no telling whether those guys are going to be back next year. And they're 28. So if they're too old, I mean, I think we can sort of see this sort of moving in a new direction, creating this new generation of Raptors talent. Which might mean Lowry's out the door, which might mean that Malachi Flynn is going to be in a much more prominent role next year. And I think he fits actually pretty nicely into that role because if you look at how Fred VanVleet fits into the team, I've always said that he's more of a really undersized two guard who gets thrust into this point guard role. He's better as an off-ball shooter. He's better as just a spot-up three-point shooter. And if you look at what Malachi's done so far, obviously he really struggled early in the season with the Raptors. He really looked like a rookie out there, just didn't really know what to do against NBA defenses. He wasn't shooting at all. He wasn't making his shots. He was kind of just getting stuck up with the ball. But if you look at his numbers in the G League, he was crushing it in the G League. He had six games in the G League. He was shooting 40% from three, scoring 20 points a game, 6 assists per game. So he had really good G League numbers. And then we've seen in April, as the Raptors have sort of gone in a new direction, as they've started to feature him more, as they started to rest guys like VanVleet and Lowry, or they've been out with injuries. We've seen him really step up his game, and he's shooting 40% from three in April. He's playing, I think, at least 20 minutes a game. I think it's closer to 30 in a lot of games. I don't know. Do you have those numbers in front of you?
Post it right there.
Post it.
It's actually 33.
Yeah. So
for the month of April.
So he's playing like starter minutes in April, and he's back to shooting 40%, which is exactly what he was shooting in the G League. It's really starting to look like that shooting struggles at the beginning of the year were just kind of rookie jitters, kind of like rushing shots, trying to get them off before the defender was in his face. Now he's settled in. Now he's becoming the shooter he can be. And what does he have? He has like 6 assists per game in April as well. So 13 points, 6 assists in April. Like, he's starting to develop into this really viable player, I think.
He's also a plus 63. So
plus 63, yeah. He's having a terrific month of April. And I kind of look at him and I see a guy who's kind of like a DJ Augustine type. Maybe that's even his floor. Maybe it could be a lot higher than that. But I think right now, even as the player he is right now as a rookie, he can fill that role of like a DJ Augustine, where he's like a bench player on a good team, comes in, runs the offense 20, 25 minutes a night. And I think with time, he could grow into something even more than that. So I absolutely think he has a role in the team next year. It's really just going to depend what happens with Lowry and where he fits in besides Van Vliet, whether it's Flynn and Van Vliet in the backcourt, or whether it's Van Vliet as a starting point guard and Flynn as the bench point guard. But I absolutely think he's going to be in the rotation next year as an important guard on this team.
What I think about it is, at the beginning, like I said a while ago when we spoke about this, before April, Nurse wasn't letting the bench guys play as much.
Back when they were trying to win, right?
Yeah, when their minutes weren't all there. But now he's getting minutes, and he's being very effective. The way I see him right now is I see it like when Van Vliet came in, right? How he was backing up Lowry, and now look at Van Vliet. I could definitely see that from Malachi Flynn. I wish him nothing but the best. And yeah, to his father, David Flynn, on that article, he does deserve those extra minutes. I agree with you 100%. Now, but Skip, because now that he's getting more minutes and the other guys are getting more minutes, based on the fact that the Raptors core, the main players, are out due to injuries. Wait, hold on. I got a broken nail. Should I leave?
Yeah, pretty much. Right?
Resting, but also more serious, the COVID effects that they're dealing with. I understand that 100%. The bright spot for the Toronto Raptors, because I know you guys are out there thinking the Raps are going to tank. The bright spot for the Raptors are all the new players that are filling their roles. So, Skip, I got to ask you, how do you feel about these newer players filling their roles and winning?
Yeah, exactly. That's it, right? Like, it's funny because the Raptors were losing all year. They were losing ground. They were playing their guys. It just tanking in the standings. And then suddenly they go and they try and tank, and they start scratching players, and they start throwing like guys on 10-day contracts out there. And suddenly they're winning. Like, these guys are too good to tank. Like, what is going on here? I think there's a few things going on. Like, they got fined $25,000 for tanking, and they won the game. So, like, yeah. I think there's a few things that are going on here. So I think, first of all, they're playing bad teams mostly in April. So bad teams on bad teams, it just happens. I think we've seen guys like Watanabe, Paul Watson, Freddie Gillespie, Kem Birch. They come in and they put up big numbers, and they're part of winning games, and it looks really nice. But I think kind of what's happening is all year the Raptors were throwing out these lineups that were really skilled, really talented, that could do a lot of things on the court, but they couldn't rebound. And no matter what they did, they couldn't rebound. And every missed shot was an opportunity for the other team to come down the other way. And it just wasn't working out for them. So they seem to have just tried to flip the script. And now they're like, well, let's just throw a bunch of guys who aren't that skilled out there and just have them crash the boards. Just throw out a bunch of bigs. Like, I think against was it against the Spurs? They had 5 power forwards on the floor at the same time at one point. Like,
yeah,
that game, the only guard they had was Malachi Flynn, and I guess Rodney.
That was when Flynn came out.
Yeah, it was Flynn and a bit of Rodney Hood, but it was like everyone else was a big, basically. So what they're doing is they're coming out and they're crashing the glass. And these guys are hungry. They're young. They want a job next year. They want to stay in the league. Meanwhile, all the veterans are kind of just like, they just aren't engaged with the season. Let's be real. Like, at this point in the season, the Van Vliets, the Siakams, the Lowrys are just going through the motions.
Van Vliet said it's different this year because now it's just strictly all about business. That was his quote.
Yeah, that was exactly his quote. And that just kind of tells you it's not even about that quote specifically. It's just about the mindset that the players are in, especially the veteran players. They're not engaged in the season in the way they need to be. So what the Raptors are doing is they're trying to tank, and they're bringing in these guys who just crash the boards. And Kem Birch, he's changed actually not just Birch and Gillespie. As soon as those guys,
I was going to ask you, who do you see? Who stood out to you? Who's standing out to you, other than Birch? Like obviously Birch, right? But
yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what these guys' roles are going to be going forward. I think Birch is, if you bring him back, I think he's a backup center. I don't think he's a starting center. But as soon as they brought in Birch and Gillespie, the rebounding flipped. It was like, we're going to win the rebounding battle every game. And I think they've won the rebounding battle for the last 5 games. And that's really all that this comes down to. It's not skill. It's not talent. It's not shooting the lights out. It's just playing dirty ball.
Play the game.
Yeah. Now, with those 4 guys, I just want to say I don't think we should get too carried away with this. Like, we're seeing Paul Watson throw up 30, Utah throw up 20.
Utah, put up that graphic.
Yeah, Utah's been doing some things. He's had some great defensive possessions as well. But I don't know what these guys' roles necessarily are. Like, they are on the younger side, but even Utah, he's like 26. It's not like a guy that just got drafted. He's been kicking around for a while. I don't necessarily know that these guys are going to be featured players on a high-level team or a championship team. I still don't really know if Utah has a regular position. I guess he's a 3 on a good team. He's maybe like a 3-4 that fills in once in a while for someone who's injured. I kind of feel the same way about Paul Watson. Like, great if he's like your 5th or 6th guard, but you don't really want to be featuring him. And like I said, with Birch, I think he's a backup. Gillespie's a bit different because he's younger. He's just 23, and he just came out, and he wasn't drafted. But as we've seen, the Raptors have developed some undrafted players. So there could be a little more upside there. But I'm not really sold on any of these guys being the answer going forward. I think the Raptors are going to have to sort of evaluate these guys, bring some of them back in kind of these depth roles. But they're still going to have to go out in the offseason and maybe spend some money on a center who isn't Aaron Baines. Maybe make some other moves towards the rotation and have these guys kind of still coming up a little bit, because I don't think you want to feature them going forward, with a few exceptions. Like, Flynn is an exception. Trent, if he comes back, he might be an exception.
I'm liking Trent.
Yeah, Trent has been he's been a revelation. He's
I'm liking Trent. Throw up his numbers right there. And by the way, I love that jersey.
Yeah, so the numbers actually, they don't jump off the page quite as much as it feels like they do, because he has had a few stinkers. But he's real. When he's on, he's really good. And like we've been saying, he's the new norm. Like,
that game winner against Washington.
Yeah, he's the new norm. Like, he's going to come in, he's going to knock down 30 some nights, and then there's going to be nights where he has 8 points.
You coined that phrase.
Yeah. You
actually coined that phrase, that he's the new norm.
Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah.
My hat's here on that one. So, but I think all these guys are good. They just need that one player to get them over the hump. Like, if you were to have the core players and these guys working, the bench guys working together cohesively with their chemistry that they're building now, I think the sky's the limit for them, until they get that one player that just might put them over. Which is
the reason why they're scratching everybody for injuries, because there is a guy named Evan Mobley coming out in the draft next year. And if the Raptors can get a top 3 pick somehow, some way, then this could be a really interesting team going forward. Because I think, if you fit some of these guys around the more skilled players who aren't playing right now, and you add a high-level center, I think there's a lot of exciting things that this team can do. But, I mean, at this rate, they're going to tank their way all the way into the playoffs, because the Bulls are terrible and the Wizards are terrible, and I think they might just end up with the 10 seed no matter how hard they try and tank. So, I don't know.
I personally don't think they're tanking. Maybe they could trade and get someone who can be MVP named Joel Embiid.
All right, Brian, you're a jackass. Brian Windhurst over here.
For anybody that didn't catch that joke, there was the Brian Windhorst podcast. He's a big time reporter, and he said that, and somebody said that to him. We just had to throw it in there because we heard it, and it was hilarious.
He went off on Tim Bontemps over Embiid being MVP and Jokic not being MVP, and
yeah, but we'll get into
if you haven't
our
heard
MVP.
it, check it out. Check it out.
We'll get into our MVP on another clip. But guys, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate. Thank you for your support. It's amazing. It makes us feel great. I see you guys interacting with us on Facebook, and I love it. Keep it up. Make sure you just go click subscribe and like on our YouTube, which is where you should be watching us right now. And if you're not, you're bootlegging. So on behalf of myself and Skip, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
Peace.